Alright, so peristalsis, nice video on that. That is the contraction and relaxation of muscles moving a bolus of food or chyme through the alimentary canal. That begins in the esophagus, continues through the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. So the stomach's going to churn and then pass that stuff into the small intestine, and we continue those smooth rhythmic contractions of that smooth muscle all the way until we are through the alimentary canal. When we look at your esophagus, we are going to break that into three separate regions. Up here at the laryngopharynx, we again decide whether we're going to go into the trachea or into the esophagus itself. We follow that esophagus down and we go into the stomach at a spot that we call the cardiac sphincter. So you can see it going through the diaphragm right there, through the esophageal hiatus. We get down here, there's the cardiac sphincter, sometimes called the lower esophageal sphincter or gastroesophageal sphincter, which they happen to label up top, which is beautiful. Then we've got the stomach, and again that diaphragm with that esophagus piercing through there. Here's a picture of the esophagus. Again, we break that into three different regions, upper, middle, and lower. The upper region is skeletal muscle, the middle is mixed skeletal and smooth muscle, and then the lower esophageal region is all smooth muscle, so you don't have control of it from there. Still two different layers. You have the outer longitudinal and inner circular. We're not to the stomach yet, so we don't have the three layers. You have the lumen with epithelial tissue. That epithelium is going to be stratified squamous, that is non-keratinized, just like the oral cavity. And then from there, we've got the exact same layers that we'll find all the way through the alimentary canal, the mucosa, the submucosa, out to the muscularis, and then on the outside of the esophagus, which is unique, we have adventitious, so some connective tissue on the very outside, instead of the serosa layer or the peritoneum. So this is a longitudinal slice, this is a cross slice. So this is showing you the lumen, and here the lumen will be on the right, and this is a horizontal slice. So you've got the exact same things, the mucosa layer out there with the epithelium and the connective tissue. Then you've got the submucosa with some submucosal glands, keeping things lubricated, foods moving. Next we head out to the muscularis layer. Since this is showing skeletal muscle, then this has to be in the top or second portion of this, not in the lower portion. There's our stomach. Different regions to the stomach, four main ones. We've got the cardia, right after the esophagus, so right next to the heart. Then we have the fundus. The fundus is going to be the very top part. Fundus, in fact, means top. You'd have a fundus to your uterus, fundus to your stomach, etc. And in that fundus, you'll even find gas bubbles on X-ray. So a lot of times people be worried about that, but it's normal, and in fact, it's a good landmark to figure out where you are. From there, we go into the body, which is going to be the main portion of the stomach. Right there where they're labeling body, you can see the three different layers of muscle. We've got the outer longitudinal, inner circular. That's the same as the rest of the alimentary canal. Then on the inside of the circular, though, we've got the oblique layer, which is unique to just the stomach. And in from there, you've got the rugae of the stomach, these large folds in the stomach, and that allows it to expand when it's full of food or needs to make more room. So then that's the body. We go down from there to the pylorus region, where we're going to have the pyloric antrum, pyloric canal, heading towards the pylorus itself, which we have the pyloric sphincter, and that's going to allow the chyme from the stomach slowly into the duodenum, where it can do more of the absorption instead of the breakdown. Now we've got a 3D model. So we're looking at the front of this person, so we're looking at the anterior, there's longitudinal, circular, and oblique. Again, those rugae, those folds in there, allows the stomach to expand as you eat, and here is a histology slide. Same layers, but we have that one additional layer in the muscularis layer. So inside we've got the lumen, we've got the mucosa with the now simple columnar, which, by the way, the bottom of the esophagus would be simple columnar as well. It transitions from that stratified squamous into the columnar tissue. So now we've got columnar tissue with goblet cells and different types of cells producing different things, but now we've got submucosa, some areolar tissue in there, muscularis layer with 3 different layers, inner oblique, middle circular, outer longitudinal, and now we're back to normal where we've got the serosa layer or the serous membrane. In this case, it would be peritoneum. This is showing you the different cells here. So each of these cells is going to have a different role in this process. So we've got the parietal cells. Those are going to be secreting hydrochloric acid and a thing called intrinsic factor. Then we've got chief cells. These secrete an enzyme that we call pepsinogen, and then when that pepsinogen hits the hydrochloric acid, it turns into pepsin. And then of course we have the mucus secreting cells, and that's going to protect the lining of the stomach. Now those mucus secreting cells, those are inhibited by ibuprofen. So that's why taking ibuprofen or Advil, you name it, just not Tylenol. We're not quite sure what Tylenol actually does if you look at the research, but ibuprofen is a COX-2 and COX-1 inhibitor, or it's just a COX inhibitor. You've maybe heard that term before, cyclooxygenase. I think I said that right. So that inhibits that. So ibuprofen, Advil, they're non-selective, meaning they inhibit that enzyme, the cyclooxygenase, throughout the body. Doesn't matter if it's a good COX inhibitor or COX enzyme or a bad COX enzyme, it's going to inhibit it. And this is where the argument for fish oils comes in, and you can argue the research on this, but the research is in that is a selective COX inhibitor. So it only inhibits the bad cyclooxygenase and not the good. So it's cutting inflammation. It's kind of a neat way of looking at it. So that's something that, even though the research depends on which article you read, I say it's a pretty good thing to do to eat it or ingest fish oils, so to speak. Stomach sphincters, we've seen these already. So you've got your esophagus with your cardiac sphincter, then your stomach and your pyloric sphincter dumping into the duodenum, the very first portion of the ileum. We've got our stomach vasculature. So on the outside of the stomach, we've got our epiploic arteries. So we've got our gastroepiploic arteries and our gastroepiploic veins. That is on the convex side of the stomach, or the lateral portion of the stomach. Then we have the gastric arteries and the gastric veins. Those are going to be on the concave, or the medial portion of the stomach.